Knowing that the Mets play the Braves at the very end of the season, understanding that it could come down to those last 3 games, kind of makes me sick to my stomach.
The Mark Vientos story is just one of, if we're talking about fairy tales, the Mark Vientos story is one of fairy tales.
I've been checking the Brave scores like social media these days. I mean, this guy is nuts.
If you can throw out Ellie, you can throw out anyone.
You can throw out anyone. And most importantly, you don't know ball.
You don't know ball. If you would have told me in perhaps April, even perhaps July, that your 3-man playoff rotation would have been Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, and David Peterson, I would have literally asked what crack you were smoking.
OMG magic, baby.
This is Why Am I a Mets Fan? A podcast hosted by Samantha Croston and Ashley Wenskoski.
Welcome back to another episode of the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. Thanks for sticking around. We took a week off last week, and man, do we have a lot to talk about now. That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston. A reminder that you can find us wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube, and we're also everywhere on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. It's all the same handle, @WhyMetsPod. The Mets are currently tied with the Braves for the 3rd NL wildcard spot. How are we feeling?
Yeah, we're back. Hello. We took a bad week off because the Mets decided to, launch a little 9-game win streak in there.
Yep.
Maybe that's on us. We're not going to get into that right now. But yeah, the Mets tied with the Braves for the 3rd wildcard spot. They're in as good of a spot as you could have hoped, I think, going into the last 20 or so games of the season. I think, look, that 9-game win streak certainly vaulted them into a much better position record-wise. They gained a bunch of games on the Braves, the Padres, the Diamondbacks, pretty much 4 teams for 3 spots right now.
78-65. They're 7 games back in the NL East, and they have 18 games left after tonight's game to make that spot their own. Tweets of the week, we have one coming by Alyssa Rose, the daughter of Howie Rose, and she said the Mets have officially reached the point where this will either be a fairy tale ending or a horror film, and how much more right could she possibly be?
That's it. That's the one. It's either going to be literally a fairy tale with how they started the season, just the best ending story ever, or it is literally going to be a horror film.
I mean, we'll have to see. It's one way or the other, but it's going to be an exciting finish either way. Here's our stat of the week that I think is pertinent right now, too. Fangraphs is giving the Mets a 49% chance of making the 2024 playoffs. It was 13% on 8/28. But the Mets also have the 3rd toughest strength of schedule remaining in Major League Baseball. They have certainly increased their chances, but it's not going to be easy the rest of the way.
Yeah, for sure. I think we'll get into the remaining games a little bit later on. But first of all, let's talk about this 9-game win streak, because if there was one thing the Mets needed to do right now, it was get hot. They got hot at the right time. Like I said, 4 teams in this NL wildcard race, really for 3 spots, right? Padres, Diamondbacks, Mets, and Braves. 3 of those teams will make the playoffs. 1 will not. On August 28th, Edwin Diaz, he blew the save in Arizona. I think the whole pulse of the Mets fan base was a little bit like, ooh, like, is this the end? Felt like that wild card was slipping away a little bit. After that, the Mets won 9 straight. They control their own destiny. And during that 9-game win streak, this is what matters. They gained an incredible 4 games on the Braves, 4 games on the Padres, and 6 on the Diamondbacks. And just to give you a little picture right now, we're recording this now on Monday night, our new night to record this. So the Mets are about to start against the Blue Jays. But just to give you a little picture of this NL wildcard race, all 4 teams are separated by 1 game in the loss column. So it's no longer just we have to beat out the Braves. Listen, if we can beat out the Diamondbacks and the great idea. Let's get that first wild card. We're bunched up very tightly.
Which, for some reason, that makes me feel more at peace. Like,
yes,
I think for a while, like even like a week or 2 ago, it was very much so like the Braves is the only way we're going to make this happen. I'd rather it be like there's a chance against the Padres or the Diamondbacks. When I hear the Braves, I don't feel good. I think as a Mets fan, you just don't, especially considering the fact that, and I know you said we'll get to this, but knowing that the Mets play the Braves at the very end of the season, understanding that it could come down to those last 3 games kind of makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
But that's a problem for then. The other thing was, in that stretch, they took 2 of 3 from the Diamondbacks. They swept the White Sox. I don't know, but as a Mets fan, in my mind, I went into that thinking, something's going to go wrong here.
Yeah, you were actually down on that series,
I was a hater.
which was the Mets fan speaking in you. Usually I knew they were going to control that
normally the
series.
hater.
Yeah, I was optimistic against the White Sox. White Sox are like the worst team that baseball's ever seen. If the Mets didn't sweep them, I had bigger problems, you know?
I understand. Not to mention then they go on and they swept the Red Sox, which was an amazing electric series.
Yep.
And then they took 2 of 3 from the Reds. So that's how we got here. And with 18 left to play, David Wright, this morning hopping on SNY, and he said they don't need any help. They don't need to scoreboard watch. They just need to go take care of their business. What'd you make of that?
That quote struck a chord in me because he's right. First of all, there's no one who would know better than David Wright. But second of all, they control their own destiny. And on September 9th, that's about as much as you can ask for. The Mets truly, as much as we will, and everyone will do it, and I'll watch the Braves score every night and the Diamondbacks and the Padres score, the Mets just need to win games. The Mets have 18 games left to play after tonight. So on Tuesday morning, the Mets have 18 games left to play, and they're at 78 wins right now. I mean, is 90 wins in play? Not that that matters. It's really just the wild card standings as a whole, but yeah, there's some fun series here coming up. I mean, the Mets and the Braves play in that one of the final series of the season, September 24th to 26th. And also, interestingly enough, the Diamondbacks and the Padres play each other in the final series of the season.
So a lot of moving pieces there. Also, just going to say it, you said the Mets don't need to scoreboard watch. I just want to say personally, I will be.
Me as well.
I've been checking the Brave scores like social media these days.
Yeah.
Checking it every single night.
Yep.
Very hard not to do that at this point. But let's talk about some of the reasons that the Mets are at the point they're at now, which is an exciting one. They're starting to feel like a complete team. They have starting pitching. They have the bullpen. Their defense looks good. And maybe we'll start there with the defense.
I would like to start with the defense.
Why don't you go on ahead?
I just think that's an underrated part of playoff teams, right? Nobody's ever looking at it's always about the lineup and the starting pitching and whatever. All important. But defensively, I think the Mets have really become a cohesive group, especially with certain combinations. Lindor obviously plays a fantastic shortstop. No matter who he's paired with up the middle, whether it's Jeff McNeil, now out for the year,
Correct.
We'll get into it, or Jose Iglesias, they are a great combo up the middle. I feel like the Mets are always turning a just astounding double play. You don't even know how they did it. Harrison Bader plays a fantastic center field. You can say what you want about him in the lineup. He started to heat up a little bit recently, but I think for defensive purposes, he's a fantastic weapon to have out there in the outfield. And Luis Torrens throwing out runners. I mean, let's just take a beat on Luis Torrens.
I'm not going to sit here and say that he's the best backup pitcher that the Mets franchise has ever seen. Sorry, catcher, you're right. That's what I meant to say, and I knew that, so everybody calm down. But I would say top 3. I would confidently say top 3. There's obviously a social media clip that you'll see roaming around where he's throwing out Elly De La Cruz. I mean, this guy is nuts.
If you can throw out Elly, you can throw out anyone.
You can throw out anyone. And that's honestly me giving flowers to Elly De La Cruz. But for real, it's like ever since Torrens, he sort of has flown under the radar a little bit because there have been so many moving pieces and so many impressive people who have been called up or have come onto the Mets in one way or another. But really, like, he's a guy who you kind of have to maybe send the Yankees some flowers or something.
Maybe a bottle of champagne.
Maybe a bottle of champagne.
Luis Torrens, for sure, I think underrated top 3 Mets pickups this season that flew under the radar. He's a sleeper pick for that. 13 for 20 throwing out runners this year. And look, you guys know how much we love Francisco Alvarez and think he has such great potential. At the same time, 2 things can be true. He's really fallen asleep at the plate. I think it's hard to sit Torrens right now if you're the Mets unless Alvarez really starts hitting.
Disagree.
You do?
I really do. I think that Alvarez is their guy, only because especially I'm really into John Boy's breakdowns of especially the catchers, but really all of them. He's a very interesting resource, so check it out. But like some of the breakdowns that he'll do where he's showing how many pitches Alvarez steals is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I think that the way that he's able to frame the ball, very few other catchers are doing, and I think his defense alone isn't enough to keep him in as a starter. But let us know what you think. Tell us in the comments.
Alvarez or Torrens?
Alvarez or Torrens. Maybe we'll make that our question of the week. Not to mention the lineup is hitting well. I think, again, this is one of those stretches where maybe not 1 through 9, but I think a lot of the guys are really doing their part out there.
Yeah, to win 9 in a row, you're certainly firing on all cylinders. I think everybody's been good in the clutch. Lindor, Vientos have really been the catalyst. Lindor's cooled off a touch. He kind of struggled a little bit in the Red series. He's hitting 286 in his last 7 games. But if I'm telling you that he's cooled off and he's hitting 286 in his last 7 games, that's just a good sign as it is. He reached base in 35 straight games. That was recently broken in the Red Series, and that is a new single-season Mets record.
Like, you guys.
I mean,
hello?
He finds a way.
He finds a way. Good time to do our second tweet of the week, courtesy of Jenna Ashland. She said, I will not engage with anyone who thinks Shohei Ohtani is 100% without a doubt winning the NL MVP. You are acting in bad faith. Your intentions are impure. Your spirit is evil. And most importantly, you don't know ball.
You don't know ball.
You don't know ball. I'd honestly love to hear. I mean this sincerely. I know that a lot of our viewers are Mets fans, but I really would like to hear from maybe a couple different perspectives on that. Like, do you think Ohtani should win the MVP? Does Lindor have a chance? I honestly want to hear where people stand at this point, because I do think it's a tough decision. I really do.
We've said our piece. We can get into it as we get further along in the season. We'll see how the last 3 weeks shake out. But
Fine.
all I have to tell you is, like she said in the tweet, he has a chance. It's not Shohei Ohtani is not running away with that NL MVP. And if Francisco Lindor has something to say about it, it's going to be a fight.
And she's also hilarious. Just
Yes.
wanted to say that.
Yes.
Not to mention, okay, so Vientos, he has a walk-off home run last week over the Reds. I think anything that we've said at all in past weeks about there being a chance or Beatty this or Beatty that, Vientos is in. He's a lock.
Vientos the guy.
He's the guy. He's what we want.
He's him.
He's what we need.
Yeah, Vientos, John Harper's tweet really stuck out to me. By the way, if you are a Mets fan and you don't follow John Harper on Twitter, I think he's one of the underrated follows. He's always pointing out a good perspective or a good stat. Used to be a writer for the Daily News, now just kind of makes appearances on SNY. Anyways, he said that if I told you back in April that come September, Mark Vientos would have a higher OPS at 905 than Bryce Harper, Freddie Freeman, Corey Seager, and Kyle Schwarber, what a story. All credit to him for recognizing needing to improve plate discipline, get shorter and quicker to the ball, etc. Mark Vientos, first of all, those just popped off the page that he has a higher OPS than, for instance, Bryce Harper. Second of all, for instance, as an example. Second of all, the Mark Vientos story is just one of, if we're talking about fairy tales, the Mark Vientos story is one of fairy tales. Grew up in Florida, grew up a Mets fan, becomes now the starting third baseman for the New York Mets, is on a tear, pushing them towards this playoff push. It's just fantastic. It's the sports story that you root for that is just so rare to come to fruition.
No, you really do. And listen, he's a great clubhouse fit. There's no doubt about it. He's hitting well. I still want to see his arm strength improve a little bit. There are certain plays that I think other third basemen would be making that sometimes he doesn't. But I'm very impressed with, I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm very impressed with his growth, what he's been able to do, even his discipline, his confidence. It all seems like it's up. Switching gears a little bit, the rotation, the bullpen, these are just other elements that the Mets seem to be putting together at exactly the right time. Since the start of August, Mets have a top 5 rotation in baseball. You have Manaea, you have Severino, and Peterson, who I really want to point out. He has a 2.75 ERA. His win-loss record is 9-1. And just recently, he set a new career high with 11 strikeouts in 6 innings of work against the Boston Red Sox. It helped it to lift the Mets to a 7-2 win. It was his birthday, and he had 11, and his 11 strikeouts against Boston are the most by a Mets starting pitcher on their birthday in team history. I love that guy. I watched the entire game because I was flying on a plane, had nothing else to do, really wanted to see what was up. He is just throwing heaters, lasers. Manaea, Severino, all impressive, but I was taken back by Peterson and what he was able to do in that game.
So he's been your breakout rotation guy of the year, you'd say?
So far, yeah. I actually think I'm ready to lock that in. I mean, his win-loss record is 9-1. What the F? But also just, 11 strikeouts, he was unstoppable, man. And I feel like whenever he's in, I feel confident that the Mets are going to win the game. And ultimately, that's what matters.
Yeah, the Mets have had a very stroke of good luck because even the last time we were talking to you all, which at this point was 2 weeks ago, we were still concerned about the rotation. There's no coincidence that 9-game win streak came at a time where the rotation put it together. You said Peterson's your breakout guy of the year. I can't argue with that. I can't argue with the stats. For me, it's Manaea. Manaea has just emerged into a legitimate, ace-type threat when he takes the ball. He's carried no-hitter, perfect games, multiple games I've been watching. Sean Manaea has been on perfect game no-hitter watch into the 5th, 6th inning. He has a 3.35 ERA, and all the difference came in the middle of this summer. He has spoken to SNY, spoken to the media about how he changed his delivery to resemble Chris Sale's. can't argue with Chris Sale and his delivery and what he's been able to achieve. So Sean Manaea has been so impressive. I think we knew the potential that Severino had, and he's continued that, a 3.74 ERA. But Manaea and Peterson emerging as the 2 and 3 has just been the most critical part of this Mets team's success.
You even have the bullpen who has stepped up. They have a 3.30 ERA since August 1st, which is the 8th best in the MLB. We'll take it. Diaz hitting triple digits on the radar gun. Tyler McGill has been in for Paul Blackburn for Monday night's start against the Blue Jays. Blackburn was scheduled to come off of the IL, but he had lower back discomfort, won't pitch in this series. But to your point, I think this 7th and 8th inning, there was a time, maybe a few times in this season where you felt like we got to that point and the game could potentially be over. I feel more confident now.
Yeah, I mean, Diaz has been better. Phil Maton's been good. I know he lost the last game of the Red Series, but other than that, he's been really good. The pitching has turned around. I still don't like Tyler McGill being your slot starter, but I'll save it on that one for right now. All I have to say about the pitching as a whole is if you would have told me in perhaps April, even perhaps July, that your 3-man playoff rotation would have been Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, and David Peterson, I would have literally asked what crack you were smoking. Luis Severino, sure. Sean Manaea and David Peterson emerging into those spots is nothing short of really remarkable on both of their ends.
Yeah, you think Manaea, you do think breakout. Like it does feel like the graph is kind of here with it. It's like a steep incline up. McNeil is done for the year, something we obviously want to hit on. He fractured his right wrist. It will cost him 4 to 6 weeks. And he sort of jokingly in an interview was essentially saying if we see him back, it's a good thing because it means they're playing deep into October.
Yeah, McNeil really put it together after the All-Star break for as much flack as he took in the first half. He was hitting .289 with a .923 OPS after the break. So he's having a good second half defensively as well. It's a loss. It's not the biggest loss it's a loss they can survive by all means. And it also means we'll get to see more of Jose Iglesias, which is always good. I can never argue with that. Iglesias' defense up the middle with Lindor is incredible. I mean, Lindor and McNeil is a good combo too, but something about that Lindor-Iglesias double play combo is just a dream.
It's like Candelita OMG magic, baby.
Candelita OMG magic. And in the clutch, he's even better, which is something that this team needs. With 2 outs and runners in scoring position, he is hitting .500 on the year. He's 10 for 20. That is unreal, the fact that he's 10 for 20 in that situation.
With 2 outs and runners in scoring position, he's cool as a goddamn cucumber.
Like,
look at his face when he goes up there and hits. Like, he really looks as calm as he could possibly be. I feel confident in him. I feel like he has that mental component down pat. Can't be easy going up there late into the game, knowing and feeling that pressure is on you. And he honestly looks fine to me compared to some of the other batters who you can see squirming.
Yeah, I agree. He looks so locked in. And the funny part about it, the comedy, is then you know that he just, is Candelita OMG. He could burst into song at any moment. So he's definitely quite multifaceted. But yeah, McNeil, I mean, it sucks. It is what it is. I think McNeil's a guy that a lot of fans, for as long as he's been on this team, they want to see him play a part in a playoff push, in an October run if the Mets get there. At the same time, I'm not mad at seeing Iglesias more.
Let's move on. Noah Syndergaard was making some comments. His Mets tenure had ended after the 2021 season. His career highlighted by some inconsistency and some injury since that point. He said he would love to return to Queens. What stuck out to you about this in general?
Yeah, he was talking to, obviously, former Mets manager Terry Collins on his podcast.
Terry Collins having a podcast is hilarious in general.
In general. Put me on the record saying that Terry Collins was my childhood. I love a good Terry Collins, okay? Anyways, Syndergaard said, I love the fan base. I love the city. I love the culture, the history, the passion. It's the best place to play, about New York and the Mets. Syndergaard left the Mets in a little bit of controversy, a little bit of a tough spot. He left them after 2021. He rejected their 1-year qualifying offer in order to sign with the Angels for $21 million. Since that point, he has struggled tremendously. Syndergaard's career has been nothing like it was in New York at any other stop. He, of course, had Tommy John surgery, really hasn't been able to come back for that. He had a brief stint with the Dodgers last year, to which he had a 7.16 ERA, and the Guardians. Is it Syndergaard, kind of just reaching for a little bit of the magic that he had in his youth when he was Thor? And it was, that was such a great time for Mets pitching in general. I don't know. I don't know how I would feel about a return based on the fact that he just has not been good the last few years at all. But if there is a guy that would deserve a more positive character arc in Mets history and does deserve to come back from this injury, I never had any problem with Noah Syndergaard when he was on the Mets. He was sure he was a little cocky. He had the Thor thing going on. But at the time, he was great. He was lights out. If he could return to that, I welcome him back. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, first, just off the bat, I think it's kind of funny because you normally see it be the other way around. It's like the Mets let a player go,
yes.
and then they fly. They succeed, they excel.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sold on that idea only because, to your point, like he is not in his youth anymore. He has tanked a little bit since leaving the Mets. I'm not sure that I'd feel confident in it. At the same time, I don't think I'd ever reject wholeheartedly the idea of an old family member coming back home. Is that fair to say?
That's good. I think if the Mets gave him a minor league deal with an invite to spring training next year, I wouldn't be upset.
No one's complaining about it.
No.
Mets also trade for EDDY ALVAREZ. They acquired the lefty hitting infielder / outfielder from the Red Sox for cash. They designated Pablo Reyes for assignment. He's 34 years old. He's played parts of 3 seasons in the majors with the Marlins in 2020 and 2021 and the Dodgers in 2022. I mean, he definitely adds some versatility. What else he adds remains to be seen, but that's what happened.
Yeah, I'm hesitant. Over 50 big league games in his career, he's hitting 183, so there's that. He's also 34. But I see why they did it, right? It gives you some versatility. He can play so many positions. I saw he can play shortstop. He plays middle infield. He's played the corner outfield. He's played almost every position on the field, literally, besides pitcher and catcher.
Like, that's impressive.
Yeah, so it gives you some defensive versatility. It gives you another lefty bat, which is something they don't have a ton of. And I thought this was really interesting, some Eddy Alvarez lore. He's a 2-time Olympic silver medalist in short track speed skating in the 2014 Winter Olympics and also in baseball in 2020. So that's just, I mean, one of the most athletic guys on the team has to be.
The more you know.
Yeah, the more you know.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Let us know, by the way, any thoughts you may have on him. Kind of curious to hear other people's perspective. And then you do have ED KRANEPOOL. Did want to make sure we mentioned this somewhere in here that he passed away on Sunday. He's a Mets Hall of Famer, the club's all-time leader in games played. And just to give a little bit of background, although I'm sure that many of you who are listening know most of this already, he became an original 1962 Met as a 17-year-old and spent his entire 18-year career in New York, hitting a crucial home run in Game 3 of the 1969 World Series to propel the Miracle Mets to a title. Beyond that, he also did a lot off the baseball field that I think so many people will remember. So maybe that could be a part of this episode too, is if you have any stories or you want to, kind of tribute to him in any way, feel free to do that in the comment section.
Yeah, I've certainly only heard positive experiences with ED KRANEPOOL. I know a guy like my dad, probably both of our dads, really values him highly in terms of Mets history, and he was one of those OG guys that then won the 69 World Series with them. So certainly an important guy. I mean, the fact that he's the club's all-time leader in games played, you just tip your hat to that. He never left. He spent his whole career in New York.
18 years.
18 years. So certainly a guy to honor and remember fondly, and the Mets will do that next season. I think it was a little bit too late in this year to give him the, honor that he deserved. So they're going to wear an honorary jersey patch for the entirety of next season.
That is so cool.
I like that a lot.
That is so cool.
I think the Mets do a really good job with honoring their old timers.
Yep.
You can tell me if you disagree with me in the comments, but just the Mets Hall of Fame, which he's a part of, the jersey stuff, the ceremonies that they have, I think the Mets do a great job.
Completely
in that
agree.
area.
Completely agree with you. Any final thoughts on the Mets in general? What's to come before we move on to the Syracuse Metsies?
Yeah, final thoughts on the Mets. So you take a look at the remaining schedule. Until the end of the regular season, right? The Mets getting started in this series now. They have 3 at the Blue Jays, 3 at the Phillies, 3 against the Nationals at home, 4 against the Phillies at home, 3 at the Braves that we already mentioned, and then to end the season, 3 at the Brewers. A little bit of a ripper. You don't have a lot of breathers in there. Maybe the Nationals are the only breather that you have in there. We know that Braves series is going to be important. On September 24th to 26th, I'm going to say something that's probably going to piss people off. You have to find a way, if you're the Mets, to throw out your best 3 starters. Lord help me God, if I see someone like Tyler McGill, just like Tyler McGill, doesn't have to be him, even a Paul Blackburn or somebody I don't trust as much, starting one of those 3 games that are going to possibly make or break your playoff chances, figure it out in the rotation. You have got to figure out how to start Manaea, Severino, and David Peterson in those 3 games.
I respect that. And I will say, I even see here the 90 wins, and could they get to it or could they not? End of the day, Braves or not, just beat out one of the 3 teams. Just beat out one of the 3 teams. It's as simple as that. It's not a matter of the Braves anymore. There are legitimately 3 other teams. If you beat out one of them, you're going to get this spot. That's going to be the situation for the rest of the year.
And look, 7 games left against the Phillies. They're 7 back in the division right now with 19 to go. I mean, that would be the comeback of the century. At the same time, stranger things have happened, as we know in Mets history. Whatever you want to say, 7 left against the Phillies. They can't have a full-blown clunker against the Phillies. A, for their playoff spot now to get there, but B, it could be a preview of the playoffs, of the NLDS, of the NL, whatever happens in the playoffs. They need to figure out how to win 7 against the Phillies. Got to figure out how to take at least 3 or 4.
I've said this from the start when I realized that they would have a chance here. It to me truly feels like they're either going to miss it by a hair or they're going to make a sincerely deep run in the playoffs. It feels like it's going to be one or the other to me. Go ahead.
I agree that if they get there, they're going somewhere, which maybe is the wrong take, but that's just how I feel about this year's team. I feel like they have a lot of momentum. I think it's a matter of getting there. And I think when there's 4 teams left for 3 spots, the Mets just got hot at the right time, 9 in a row. Got to keep playing that same baseball in the next 3 weeks, though.
And that remains to be seen whether they'll do it or not. But of course, we'll keep you updated. Syracuse Mets, just want to put you guys on blast about a few things with the team, but also with us.
Yes.
I'm wondering if anyone saw that, but if you didn't, we just thought it was cool. So we'll tell you. We were actually able to last week, since we partner with the AAA Syracuse Mets, when the Mets have an off day, sometimes the Syracuse Mets will be broadcasted on SNY. And Ashley and I were actually able to go on that and talk about the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. So if you listen to that, thanks so much. And if not, honestly, it was just a cool experience because even our family members who live sort of more in that area were able to watch us on TV.
Yeah, my parents were watching, my parents' friends were watching, which was cool. Kind of our little SNY debut. Of course, we hope there's more to come there in the future. But yeah, just wanted to shout out the Syracuse Mets. Thank you so much for having us and having us on and able to talk about this podcast. It was great. Syracuse Mets have not been playing so great.
Right. Couple crazy games lately, an 11-8 comeback win, a 19-0 loss. Oh my God.
That's a football score. What are we doing?
Oh my. When I saw that, I was like,
yeah.
Was there a typo?
Yeah.
They have one more homestand left against Charlotte next week, and then they wrap up this season on the 22nd. Essentially, to put it lightly, not playing for much in the sense that they are 26-36 in the second half.
Yeah, it sucks a little bit. They were so good in the first half. If you've been with us from the beginning all summer long, before the All-Star break, the Syracuse Mets were fantastic. They came in second in the International League for the first half title, behind Omaha. Kind of hoping they could continue that level of play so we could see them in that kind of AAA championship series, but that's not going to occur, obviously 26-36 in the second half. But I really like manager Dick Scott of the Syracuse Mets. I think he runs a tight ship over there. I think the first half was a really successful time for them, so I'm excited to see where they can go next year. They obviously have a lot of prospects there right now, Luis Angel Acuna being one of them. He's been passed over to be called up so far, which I'm not mad at. I think let him keep playing every day. Let him keep being developed. We also got the chance to talk to their number 1 prospect, Brandon Sproat. So go back and watch that video from last week if you have not. It was a really interesting conversation.
Tell us like one thing that stuck out.
Yeah, just about his journey really up through the minors, through the SEC. He played at Florida. And then, of course, the whole thing with the Mets drafting him once in 2022, them not being able to come to an agreement. He goes back to Florida for his senior year of college, and then he re-signs with the Mets in 2023, which is something he kind of feels like was destiny. So go watch that interview because genuinely, I think if you are a Mets fan, he's a top prospect in the system right now. It was really some great stuff. Yeah,
something you should know about. Last but not least, the Mets have agreed to a 1-year contract with former Athletics and Orioles right-hander Shintaro Fujinami. Wait, this happened.
Yeah, they brought him on in the winter.
Okay.
For $3.35 million. He was kind of a vaunted pickup at that time. He started off the year terrible in AAA.
I love how you have terrible in all
terrible.
caps.
It's 10.95, 3 ERA. He couldn't put it together. He went on the IL with a right shoulder strain in June, and since rehabbing and coming back from that injury, he has been really good in Syracuse, to the point where you think, I know the roster's already expanded, so we'll see what they do as the AAA season comes to an end in another couple of weeks, but he has been just lights out in relief. In the last 8 games, hitters are 1 for 37 against him.
He was the guy pitching when we went to interview, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
He was pitching then.
Yes.
Yes. My dad even commented on him. He's like, wow, that guy looks really good.
He has been really good. And I know a guy that the Mets were kind of hoping would turn out, right? They're paying him $3.35 million and he's in AAA. That's no small sum of money. So the Mets were hoping he'd be able to put it together. And it seems like he has. It seems like maybe that injury was what he needed to get over and work through.
Isn't that wild? How some people come back almost like better.
Right. He just truly needed some time. He throws strikes. He literally is throwing right now 75% of strikes in his last 8 games. He has 15 strikeouts. So certainly an impressive guy, someone to be on the watch for, because they could always use bullpen help.
Yeah, curious if anybody watched him or watched the Syracuse Mets in general when the New York Mets aren't on. So let us know if you saw him. Beyond that, hey, we'll see you next week. We are back. We're ready to ride, hoping not to take any more off for the rest of the season, and maybe even, some episodes more frequently if they do make the playoffs. So thanks so much as always for sticking with us. We will see you back here next Tuesday. Tuesdays from now
morning.
on, we're recording on Mondays. Thanks for sticking with us. See you next Tuesday.
Let's go Mets.